The Pentagon is launching a fresh review of women serving in ground combat roles, more than a decade after those positions were formally open to them. The review comes amid renewed debate inside the American military and long-standing skepticism from the Secretary of War Pete Hegseth about whether women should serve in certain frontline combat units. Women were officially integrated into ground combat roles in 2015. Today, around 4,500 women serve across the Army and Marine Corps in the infantry, armor and artillery units, with a small number even qualifying for the Special Forces. Now, the Pentagon is reassessing how those units perform. According to a report by the ABC News, an internal memo suggests that the 6-month review will examine performance data, training outcomes and staffing across ground combat units. The findings are expected to inform future decisions on how those units are structured and trained. Pentagon officials say the review is not about gender, but standards. In a statement, Pentagon Press Secretary Kingsley Wilson said that combat standards will be elite, uniform, and sex-neutral, adding that the weight of a rucksack or a wounded soldier does not care whether someone is a man or a woman. Now, at the center of this issue is the experience of women who were among the first to step into the roles once close to them. One of them is Elizabeth Dempsey Beggs. As per the report, Beggs was commissioned through the Army's Reserve Officers Training Corps. She graduated in 2018 and chose one of the military's most demanding paths, commanding tanks. The armor field requires mastery of some of the heaviest weapons in the U.S. arsenal and constant tactical precision. She was among the first women to enter the field and soon found herself leading soldiers at Fort Riley, Kansas, but entering a space that had long been exclusively male. It came with skepticism. Beck said some questioned whether women could handle hand-to-hand combat training, which involves close physical contact, or manage basic realities of life in the field. She said she approached those doubts directly, answering questions openly and without judgment. And over time, she says, attitudes changed. Once soldiers actually served alongside women in combat roles, the skepticism largely faded. But now the Pentagon review comes after years of studies on women in combat units. Many of those studies, including by the services themselves, found no degradation in the overall unit performance. A Marine Corps study did find women were more likely to suffer injuries, a point often cited by critics. In fact, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has long opposed women serving in the frontline combat roles, though his position has now evolved over time. In a September address to troops, Hegseth had framed the issue around standards rather than gender, saying that if women meet the rigorous gender-neutral requirements, they should be allowed to serve. He had said, and I quote him, "If women can make it, excellent. If not, it is what it is." That stance contrasts sharply with the remarks that Hegseth had made before taking office, including in his 2024 book, where he argued that women should not serve in combat units. Comments widely viewed as openly hostile to the idea. The review also comes at a time of broader change inside the military. 2 decades of war in Iraq and Afghanistan blurred traditional front lines, often placing women in combat conditions even before formal restrictions were lifted. Many served under fire and were recognized for their acts of valor. The U.S. Army has also recently implemented gender-neutral standards for combat jobs, while revamping how physical fitness and body fat measurements are assessed across the force. The Pentagon's findings are expected later this year, and it could shape how the American military defines combat readiness in the years ahead.